So those who lack a lawful status, those who entered without inspection, that is a deportable ground. Ohana ofa border nebaye and you'll be an amount you are liable to deportation. Criminal convictions. Into any of the groups that we looked at, or more with non-immigrant visas, permanent residents, who are aggravated felony, they said they are listed here, you bet to me the work of fear. If you are in immigration, if you've had an immigration violation, visa overstays, marriage fraud, abandoning permanent residency, I know see one thing a tie green card holders ye name say we a green card holder to me 2 kwan okoba. Name no US and say no say 2 kwan and she say any kwan say we more than 6 months. Who could do more than 6 months, there's a presumption say I say person abandoning where you or permanent residency as a person but now anymore really. So that is something that we will discuss again down the line. But that's something I want you to know about. So you're a green card holder, that's also something that really affects people. People go outside and stay for a year. When they're coming back, they are taken into secondary inspection. And then they find themselves facing so many questions. If they're not able to fully answer the questions as to why they overstayed, or they're not able to show ties to the US, even as a permanent resident, they are returned back to their country of origin. And another ground of deportation is national security threats. So if you are here and you are found to be involved in terrorism, espionage, you are also deportable. Until Russian spies. No matter what permanent resident or whatever status other than citizenship, they are deported. All right. Now, Yaka and Kofomo at risk of deportation. But then I want us to know, say, Obia or at risk of deportation and ICE ebe deporting because Yaka undocumented immigrants who come here omo doso pa. ICE agents omo doso sa. So it's impossible for them to round up every single person. So it's only a few people that they are focused on, they are prioritizing. When it comes to targets of ICE enforcement, undocumented immigrants with criminal records, such as DUIs, sexual assault, murder, omo priority. Into head ye titi wo news mo ye chichi on gang members, those with aggravated criminal records, no. Omo na ye di omo shas ye, omo priority number 1. So those are targets of ICE enforcement. Individuals with final removal orders. Into here US maimu ankofo bebre will removal orders. Just no san ye for immigration court system ne decide say nipa we dio emphata so betina o maimu esi yi ni free aha ne de ne ko ba free buy. So those with final removal orders are also at risk of deportation. Now the sad thing is a lot of people have removal orders and they are not even aware, because the trebia okushia ICE officer bi o man no notice to appear man a paper bi on TS so they are too baby and also the court can grant a removal order in your absence. It is all so removal order and I say unibia. We are immigrants who come here who alien number, be a friend alien number, like 7 to 9 digits for most people. And no, what they call website be a friend or I think say icelocator.gov. Me share na me dey to chat nim. Na ye ko see ya. That would do a number na shim. It will removal order, bet sure so removal order, that's only removal order. Now, na mo bio na ye at omoya targets of ICE enforcement. As I make a training baby, I hope say you okay.
All the fra brofo no, send a bear a brofo for no.
And I'm real.
Okay.
Okay, so other groups that are targets of ICE enforcement are undocumented workers. So those without work authorization that are currently working with false documents. And I said they are working under the table, they're also targets of ICE enforcement. And then there's a large group of people who are not necessarily targets, but then may find themselves, in ICE's grips. And these are people who we term as collateral arrest. That is undocumented individuals without criminal records or criminal backgrounds who find themselves at the wrong place at the wrong time. Nti ebu ha wo man uni nkrata ena uni onye oman mfomso bia wo man mu. Nanso ebia ICE ko arrest obi ewo ne fie. Na ebia wo kosere oni pakro na ne de wafra. Say wo nkrata. Ni bi na no sa na say yaso a ne de. Oman arrest do ako detain you.
Hey, it's fully enough.
Offensive strategies are. What steps can we take to prepare ourselves for an ICE encounter? Okay, as you know, in this atmosphere. So the first thing that we need to do is to get an immigration checkup. Inti tisadia, oko health checkup every now and then. The same thing about me for immigration. You can consult an immigration attorney for them to look at your case. Maybe you've seen an attorney before, and perhaps you got wrong advice. And I said, one can't something pertinent and China a bit me immigration relief there you qualify for. Inti I will say case no any year like there's no pathway for you. And immigration rano assessor from time to time. So maybe something may have come up you qualify for. So the first thing I'll tell people is, even as we are preparing ourselves, because you never know. They have their targets, but they said I'm a kind of collateral arrest. Sometimes you end up at the wrong place. But it can happen. When it does, work with immigration attorney, I'm not prepared. You would have very little to be fearful about. You'll be prepared because you would know what to expect. And to get an immigration checkup, find out if you don't have documentation, find out what the legal pathways are for you to obtain, an immigration status in this country. It is possible. You have to try. Say, Okona, there's no avenue for you, and they'll let you know. Okay, so, but it's always good to have an immigration screening. And then also memorize the name and number of a trustworthy removal defense attorney. It's a removal defense attorney, immigration lawyers who specialize in defending people before the immigration court. Okay, so they are going to come up with defenses to let the court know why you are not to be taken from the country, to be removed from the country. So memorize, because when ICE picks you up, they search you, they take your belongings before they put you into detention. It's like they put you into a local county jail. Until Ohio Hanum said there are 2 facilities that cooperate with ICE. Until Yadoba court said Yadoko normal jail. But in jail, because immigration is not criminal, it's civil. So they will strip you, take your belongings, check it in, and then put you into holding. Until when it's time for your phone call, you won't have access to your phone and a walk of free. You have to do it from your memory. Until memorize the name of a removal attorney. Until and also you can look up right now as you prepare. So now you are in danger of deportation. They said they're discussing now. Look at trustworthy attorneys near you, memorize their numbers. And I say memorize the number of a family member. You move a phone error. Smartphone near the idea by you numbers. But then do what to keep a number in your mind so that when you need it, able to have access to it. And after we are lawful permanent resident, we are green card holder. Our advice you say apply for citizenship. So if you're a lawful permanent resident, I'd advise you to apply for citizenship, and we need to be careful about that as well. So if you don't have any criminal records, if you qualify for all the grounds, you can speak your English, or you apply for exemptions from the naturalization English test, you can go on ahead and apply for citizenship. But even in this atmosphere now, I suggest that you speak to an attorney, get screened, make sure that there's nothing hidden in your background, and go on ahead and apply for citizenship. Because to say that we as citizens, you are immune from deportation. And then you can also help family members who don't have any lawful status. Okay. And we also want to know which documents to carry and which ones to leave at home in this atmosphere. Okay. So if you have lawful status, I'd advise that whenever you leave the house, you carry with you a valid green card. So it can be the actual card or a receipt of an extension. If your green card has expired and you've put in a request for USCIS to extend it for you, they'll send you a paper receipt. You can keep a copy of that on you. Some people have also lost their green card, but then they have a stamp in their passport. You can also keep a copy of that on you. That is up to you. Some people recommend keeping the original on you and then keeping a copy at home or with a trusted person. But when these things get missing, it takes money to replace them. So I would suggest keeping a copy on you and leaving the original at home. In any case, if they don't want a copy, they'll follow you to get the original, okay? So that shows your lawful status. And, a couple of the other documents that are listed here, or work authorization, copy of a visa stamp in your passport, copy of your naturalization certificate, and as a certificate of citizenship, and as a passport card. And I might be to say Ohio, you can also keep your driver's license. Because then Ohio, only lawful status, I want to apply for a driver's license, so you can keep that on you as well. And then if you're undocumented, I would suggest that you keep on you know your rights card. Other people refer to it as the red card. I'll show you in the next slide what that looks like. But for All Nation Baptist members, that card was distributed in church, I think 2 weeks ago. If you were at church in that time, you should have a copy. You want to keep on you proof of more than 2 years residency. So under the Trump administration, a new that has happened is something called expedited removal. We had expedited removal under the laws of the country, but then it's only applied if you were within 100 miles of a US border. So if you were in Mexico, if you were in Canada, near the Canadian border, if you're near the Mexican border, within 100 miles of that, or any of the oceans. So East Coast, Florida, they all counted. And if you had only been in the country for less than 2 weeks, you were subject to expedited removal, meaning an immigration officer would decide to deport you, not an immigration judge. So you're not afforded a hearing, you are just picked up and then sent right back to your country. That was what was under the laws. But under the Trump government, this has been extended. So now anybody anywhere in the US who has not been here for more than 2 years is subject to expedited removal. Nti so wamaimu na ubaye no undru 2 years. Trump will say to me, you work for your memo without you seeing an immigration judge, without due process. An immigration officer will just say, because undi krom had 2 years. Nti ano to me go through the motions. We'll talk about the advantage of, having a hearing before an immigration judge. Because immigration courts, they are swamped. So case could do it can take from like 1 to 5 years. Under the previous Trump administration, I used to take like 5 years for people to go to immigration court. It's 4 years, but not still you're going to the immigration court, and then probably something favorable will come up for you. Because immigration law is at the whim of the executives. It takes a lot to go to Congress. A lot of them come through executive orders. So make sure you have proof of more than 2 years residency. So if you have a lease, it was what I was signing on more than 2 years ago, keep it on you. If you have utility bills from however long ago, keep it on you. Then those who don't have any lawful status but have applied, maybe what worry US citizen, or apply for adjustment of status. USCIS are sending you receipt. Excuse me, you want to keep that on you because it shows you qualify for a benefit and you're going through the motion. So you have a right for your case to be heard throughout. All right, the red card now, and this is the red card. The first part where all constitutional rights are it tells all the rights that you have, and the second page here also is for an ICE agent you come across to let them know your rights. In the card, not the moment. This is the part that matters. This is the part for you. When you copy, you can let us know. We can always give you a copy. But this is the red card that I was referring to. Remember, you need as many as possible. You can keep one in your car, one close to your door, so that when you need it, you have it. It explains the rights that you have. Now, documents not to carry on you in this current atmosphere. You don't want to carry any documentation about your country of origin. You want to make sure, say, Ghanaian passport, anyone, and a Ghana card, anyone, voters ID card, anyone, that will point to your country of origin, you want to make sure, say, anyone, because usually immigration officers, when they encounter you and you are subject to deportation, they have to first figure out which country they are deporting you to, and then see if they have arrangements with the country to send you there. If that arrangement exists, they'll begin to process you. That takes about a week or two, maybe more, a few days, and then you are off. Yeah, during the first week or two of Trump's administration, Colombia, they were going to send some immigrants to Colombia, and the Colombian president initially came up and said he wasn't going to receive them. So yeah, that is an option because every country is sovereign. And there are certain countries who don't have any agreement with the US to receive their deportees. There are countries who are open to receive. So you need to figure out where you come from. And until they do, they can't deport you. Until you need any country of origin documentation on you, they won't be able to tell where to send you to. And then you want to make sure you are not carrying on you any false identity or false immigration documents. Until Obi work authorization, you don't want that to be on you. Make sure it's at home because it is not yours. That will only exacerbate your issue. Because when they are going to detain you, they will search you. Whatever is on you, they will see it. You want to make sure documents that are not yours are not on you, and then nothing false, okay, is on you. And then also, you want to create a family preparedness plan. So many people ask the question, what will happen to my house, my bank account, if ICE arrests me and sends me home? What will happen to my children? There are plans that you can put in place. And for that as well, I have links. When we get to the Q&A session, and I don't have to share my screen, I will find the links for you and then put it on the platform so that you have access to them. So when it comes to your children, you want to find out who will take care of your children if you are detained. Say, who in an free school. Okay. And then what decision are you making? Are you going to take, in case you are being removed from the US, are you going to take your children along with you? Are you going to have them join you later? Are you going to have somebody take care of them? Depending on what your decision is, there are certain legal documents that you have to prepare, okay, so that your children will be taken care of. US on my imuno, ya dembra na ye adwuma. Enti obi antumi nsori nka se yasemasi de ne bejame. Enti me de ne ko hospital. Ti se de emu bebre nim no, ode akola bi kodru ha. Se wonye guardian a, wonye legal guardian a, hospital no will want to call the legal guardian to find out, say, okay, Oman authorities on fa akola imbra na. Enti you won't be around because you'll be somewhere else. So you need to prepare before it happens. Also, when it comes to financial decisions, you want to make sure that you have a trusted person. If you are taken into detention, there's an option for you to make bond. That is like bail. And then if you're not a flight risk, you're not a danger to the community and many other factors, you'll be asked to pay a bond and then you come out. But who detention, you don't have access to your bank account. That is something to think about, something to work on right now before it's too late. And somebody to make legal decisions for you. And we recommend that you keep all your legal documents in a folder, copies of it in a folder, and then give it to a trusted person. Because for most of us who have been through the immigration process, we have an A number. And when you are detained, like I said, an A number is something that can be used to find out which detention center that you are at, so that your lawyer can begin the process of maybe getting you a bond, getting you a hearing, something like that. So you want to make sure that is also available. And then memorizing emergency contact information, we already spoke about that. And then you also want to explore post-conviction relief. There are many of us, or some of us, who have criminal convictions. That is not the end of the matter for you, okay? We have immigration lawyers who are, we call them crimmigration lawyers because they have criminal expertise. They have criminal law expertise. So they can help you look at, what the conviction is, the areas surrounding, they can get it expunged, they can get you so many reliefs. You want to speak to somebody about a conviction if you have one. So these are, what we've discussed are the proactive steps you can take, okay, before you encounter an ICE agent. Now, what if ICE comes to your door? What do you do? What rights do you have? So the first thing you want to keep in mind, okay, when ICE comes to your door is to stay calm and not to run away. Say, who share will be now joining all of a sudden, especially law enforcement. The assumption is, why baby? You have done something wrong, because nobody runs away if they are innocent. You want to be calm as much as possible and not run away. Okay, back door being. Remember, you have a right not to open the door. And it is said there solicitors or no be board them or ton the same thing with ICE. Unless they shout out to you that they have an arrest warrant, ICE police, open up, we have a search warrant. And not there. Now, if you will pay attention, one who say you might have to open the door. Missy might. But until they say we have a search or an arrest warrant, you don't have to open the door for them. Okay, it is your private space. You give permission for people to come through, or the law calls you. Now, under the Fourth Amendment, you are protected from unreasonable searches in places where you have reasonable expectation of privacy. It's baby to say we fear no. Nobody can come in without your permission or without a judicial warrant. Now, judicial warrants are of two types. They have the arrest warrant and a search warrant. In the next slide, I will show you an example of a judicial warrant, a judicial search warrant. But for a search warrant to be valid, it must be signed by a judge. So that is something to keep in mind. Panosha Asia, woman say, will be signature now, see any judge. No say it's a judicial warrant, not an immigration officer. Must contain the address of the home to be searched and sometimes the area to be searched. That is something to keep in mind. Into her warrant here, this is a judicial warrant. The very top, okay, United States District Court. So it would always state the court that issued the warrant at the very top. So pay attention when this paper comes. And then it will say whether it's an arrest warrant or a search warrant. Then it would have your name in here, okay? And then at the bottom here, see where it says U.S. Magistrate Judge, it says signed by a judge. Okay, so U.S. Magistrate Judge means a judge signed it. So this is, they present you with something like this. There's a valid warrant and you're required under law, if it's a search warrant, to open your door for them to come in and search the area that is designated on the search warrant. If it is an arrest warrant, you still don't have to open the door. Whoever's name is on the arrest warrant, if the person is in the house, you tell the person to go outside and then deal with the ICE agent. The reason why you don't want to let them in if it's an arrest warrant is, when they come in, they will ask questions and it be more Israeli and they are no, or they are going to release it or no class we need status. It's arrest warrant needs to peer. Everybody else in the house, no matter the status, can rest in peace until maybe their day of reckoning come, God forbid. This is an example of an administrative warrant that USCIS always has. So very rarely do USCIS have a judicial warrant because I know more pentem. And a court, the court is overloaded. So it might take a while for them to get the warrant. So they go ahead with this administrative warrant that is issued within the department. So it will say up top here, U.S. Department of Justice, Immigration and Naturalization Service, rounds of removal or deportation, and then your name. And then Joshua, it doesn't say any court name up top. There's no judge down here. And don't be say, you don't have to open the door. Okay. How do you find out which type of warrant they have? First of all, you don't want to open your door to them, not even a little bit. Because sometimes when you do, they'll push in and say you gave them permission to come in by opening it a bit, even though that doesn't. But you don't want to get into that whole argument. And to tell them, if you have, your door allows it, tell them to slide the warrant under the door. You can inspect it and then slide it back out to them. If your door doesn't allow that, tell them to hold it to your window, okay, if you have it. And then you can inspect it and then determine what to do, given what we've discussed. All right. Then what if ICE has a valid warrant, okay, or they enter your home without permission? And like I said, maybe you open your door just a little bit and then they push their way inside anyway. Maybe I will be your door crabby. No more day, I'm holding a room. Say, then I'll be to me. One thing to always keep in mind, always stay calm and don't run away, okay? You have rights. You have nothing to be afraid of. immigration lawyers are here to help you. So stay calm, no matter how intimidating the situation may be. Then once they're in your home, remember the red card that we discussed earlier on that has a summary of your rights. So your rights under the 4th Amendment, your rights under the 5th Amendment are all in there. You can hand over a copy of that red card to the agent. And then call your attorney, okay, and exercise your right to remain silent. If you don't have an attorney, you can call somebody with good status, maybe a citizen or somebody you know has lawful status, who won't be afraid to speak to them on your behalf. Because sometimes when people agree, they begin to shake so much that they don't, like, it's confusing. They can't decide what to do. So you want to call somebody to be there by your side, you can do that. But my suggestion is to reach out to an immigration attorney, okay? And then don't talk. So exercise your right to remain silent. That right is guaranteed under the 5th Amendment. I plead the 5th. Just say that and say nothing else. Don't say I invoke my right to be silent and then omubisa question, yeah, still answering the questions. Okay, so just whatever question they ask, just say you invoke your right to be silent. Ti emremo no wo ho kwan say omubisa question na won no. Nti dia beka ne say minya no. Omomu hu so won te brofo a, figure out a way to communicate with you. But that's why the red card comes in handy. Because with the red card, once you hand it over to them, you are basically speaking to them without opening your mouth. Okay, so you can just hand it over to them and it's just quietness from then. But some people, you know, in spite of advice, will still want to speak because question be promptium. When that happens, remember, you don't want to lie. Okay, so speak the truth. But my suggestion is invoke your right to remain silent, because these ICE agents can be very charming sometimes. They will speak as if they have your best interest at heart, but trust me, they don't mean it. So you want to be silent. Then refuse to sign any papers before you talk to an immigration lawyer. Sometimes they'll present you a paper and say, oh, when you sign this paper, it will make you leave the country, but then you'll be able to come back in. You know, they are not obligated to tell you the true state of affairs when it comes to the law. So sometimes they can lie to you just to get you to do things. So maybe they'll say, sign this paper and won't take your children with you. Those are all lies. Don't sign anything before you talk to a lawyer, okay? Then you can also record the conversation with a phone, with a notepad, write the names of the officers and the badge numbers. Because whatever happens, if there's a need for an immigration lawyer to come in, they wouldn't have been present during the encounter, so they wouldn't know certain facts that may be, you know, pertinent. But if you record details either on your phone or with a notebook, you can later relay that information to a lawyer who will be better able to assess the situation and, you know, give you whatever relief you qualify for. But note that even though you are entitled to record with your phone in your own house, they ask you to stop recording so that you don't escalate situations. Just stop recording, okay? And just take mental notes or write on a piece of paper, whatever works for you. All right, and in terms of when you encounter an ICE agent, what happens if you are stopped in a public place, a public space? A lot of us, you know, are worried about this. So some are not even going out these days. But once again, there's nothing really to be worried about. Trust me, there's a lot that can be done on your behalf. So if you are stopped in a public space, now when we talk about a public space, that is a place where the public is allowed. There's no restriction. Anybody can come in, right? So when you talk about a park, people go to the park all the time. Whatever time that you want, you can go to the park. If it's a store, during business hours, it's a public space because there's no restriction. Anybody can come in and go out. The restaurant, the street, those are all public spaces. So if you are stopped in a public space, first thing, stay calm and do not run away. Second thing, hand over your red card and exercise your right to remain silent. Now, I've intentionally put repetitions of these things in here because they say repetition for emphasis, right? And then sometimes the more you say it, the more it sinks in. So when you're in a public space, you have a right to remain silent. That right to remain silent goes with you everywhere you go, okay? But then one thing to note is that when it comes to invoking the right to remain silent, state laws play a role. There are some states that you are required to provide certain information when you are in a public space. And then there are other states, there's no requirement. So you are good to go. You can always say, I plead the fifth and not say anything else. But Ohio is one of those states that requires you at a minimum. Okay, when we talk about law enforcement, if you're approached by a police officer, somebody who works in the sheriff department, law enforcement, you have to disclose your name, your address, and your date of birth when you're in a public space, and they ask you for it. Ohio requires that you do that, you give them that information. But then the definition of law enforcement under the Ohio code that I've shown here is not that broad to cover ICE police or ICE agents. So you don't, if you can recognize that this person is an ICE agent, you don't have to give them your name, your address, or date of birth. You can just say, I want to invoke my right to keep silent. So many people ask, how do I tell the difference between an ICE agent, and a police officer? Well, in Ohio, usually when you're approached by a police officer, their car is usually not far away and they're always in uniform, okay? And then you can request, you can ask them, are you police or are you ICE police? Police will always tell you the truth. ICE police, not so much. But ICE police is usually, they are in plain clothes. They are always in plain clothes. They are in unmarked vehicles. And so car is like any ordinary car. To say your car is here, you drive here. But then, ICE police. And any uniform. If you are normal share, so bulletproof vest, be and I say something that marks and I tell say ICE police. So that is something that you can use to tell a difference. And then in a public space, they said that the Fourth Amendment protects your right to refuse searches in places that you should expect privacy. Okay, so inside your bag, in your car, those are like places that are protected. So you can refuse a search in the public space. Police needs to, ICE agents stopping us, I'm here, the bag mask, do not consent to be searched. And then also, once again, don't sign anything until you talk to a lawyer. But sometimes you can sign away your rights. Let's keep that in mind. What happens if you are stopped while you are driving? Once again, stay calm and do not run away. And because when you're bonia unjane, into jane pet, yes, sound near chiwas, you say, excuse me, mama. So stay calm and don't run away. If you are asked to show your driver's license, car registration, and proof of insurance, please do. Because under Ohio law, you're not supposed to be driving without this information. It's no sign, say your boy and who buying. So Hannah won't need license. I suggest that you don't drive. Your baby, I saw who born out to tell them, excuse me for using this bar. You don't want to exacerbate your situation, okay? You don't want to call attention to yourself. You want to stay away from police and as far as possible. So if you don't have a license, don't be driving. If you have a permit, make sure you have another driver more than 21 years sitting beside you so that you don't infringe on any laws. And you should have all of this information, okay? And then, once again, hand over your red card and then tell them, I invoke my right to remain silent. The patrol, silent, menkasa. You have a right to refuse a search. But one thing to know, when a police officer stops you, not ICE, a police officer, when they stop you and they have reasonable suspicion that your car was used in the commission of a crime, they have the right to search it. Until stop I say we be born woman. To me, the source of the we. So let's be careful, okay? But then once again, you have a right to refuse to sign any papers before you talk to a lawyer. After you've shown your driver's license, car registration, proof of insurance, then your ticket's been on the mount. Now, so be some questions about your immigration, there. Say, I have a right to remain silent. I invoke my right to be silent. Am I free to go? Am I under arrest? Always ask that, okay? When you're in a public space as well, make sure you ask them, am I under arrest? Am I free to go? If they say yes, you are free to go. Walk away. If you're in a car, drive away. That is your right. Okay. Now, what happens if you're at work or we'll discuss courthouse later. What happens if you're at work? Once again, do what? Stay calm, do not run away. Red card, remember, we are always talking about stay calm, don't run away, and then the red card. Okay, hand over the red card to ICE to exercise your right. Do not answer any questions about your immigration status. Don't discuss your immigration status with anybody at this point, at work, wherever. Don't discuss your immigration status with anybody, okay? Omo bisa say, oh, only one fufu din come no bisa say, what's your abofin? Only one din come bisa, what's your legal status? No asren wetrim. You don't want to say you're a US citizen when you are not, but just smile and make sure you disappear from that location. So don't disclose your immigration status to anybody in this current atmosphere. Remember, when you're at work and they come to you, they want to search your locker, they want to search your bag, you have a right to refuse a search. You have the right to refuse to sign any papers before you talk to a lawyer. And they ask, are you free to go? If they are not arresting you, they have to let you go. If they arrest you, no, they'll put handcuffs on your hands and then take you to a detention center. So if they are just asking plenty questions, after saying you'll be silent, ask them, am I under arrest? Am I free to go? And then take your leave. If they say yes, you are free to go. Now, under the prior administration, there was a policy, an internal policy in ICE that prevented them from, taking enforcement actions near places that were designated as sensitive locations. So places like the courthouse, like the church, like school, like hospitals, those places were designated as sensitive, so they couldn't come there to make an arrest or to do searches. But under this current administration, that policy has been changed. Now they've been given the freedom to exercise common sense, but then given the freedom to go to these sensitive locations. Okay, but I want to touch on the issue of churches. When it comes to the courthouse, it's the same right, okay? Stay calm, do not run away. Because so stay calm, do not run away, hand over the red card if they approach you, invoke your right to be silent, don't sign anything. So don't talk, don't sign anything, and then refuse to be searched. Now, when it comes to churches, churches are considered private places, okay? So ICE cannot enter once again without a judicial warrant or an arrest warrant. If they come there, who the people in charge, the pastor, the leaders, you ask them, do they have a warrant? Like I said, most often they don't. And you inspect whatever paper they give you to make sure it's an actual judicial warrant. If it is not, tell them you are invoking your constitutional right to not let them in. And that should end the matter. They cannot come in. Now, if you're a congregant and perhaps they have an arrest warrant and they come in, you hand over your red card, exercise your right to be silent, refuse to be searched, and refuse to sign any papers without first talking to your lawyer. And sir, right, let's keep it in mind. Mremono, who kwan, so umubisa wasema unyiano. Okay, about your immigration status, unyiano, udi unyiano. Or most of the a show bag in a show person, a show care or say there be Mremono, me mama who kwan, someone by show me home, and I say me care or any personal belonging. And after moment crater be no matter what they say or say, many lawyer and kasaya, paper you may sign. And one no. But one thing to know is that even though they've been given that freedom to enforce, to do immigration enforcement, they are not doing it. They always wait at places. Usually, then they pick you up. That's how they act. But keep in mind, when it comes to these things, usually ICE is like overstretched. They just don't waste time on everybody. They have priorities. So the priorities that we spoke about earlier, those are the people that they'll go to the trouble of following them to these places. Now, when it comes to schools, okay, there's a law in America called FERPA. It's like HIPAA. HIPAA for hospitals, FERPA for schools. The school is mandated under law not to release any student information to any third party, so ICE, whoever, without parental consent. And then your immigration status shouldn't even come up. But in case it doesn't, they have it, they are not supposed to release it to ICE. If they do, they can be sued. And schools know that. News more. Some Ohio school districts have come up to assure parents, said they are going to abide by the law. They're not going to release any information without parental consent. If you're a parent and you're worried that ICE may follow your child to school, you can write a note to the principal indicating that you do not consent for your child to speak to ICE, okay? And then sometimes when you're signing up your child to school, they have something called the directory, school directory. So your number, your name, and stuff like that. They'll ask you whether they can share it with others. If you say yes, and perhaps ICE goes to the school, that information is fair play, okay? So you want to be careful what you allow them to share in the school directories. The same thing with hospitals. They can't be seen violating HIPAA, so they won't be able to release your information or your medical records to ICE without your consent. So you have rights. ICE cannot do whatever they want. Okay, so that is all in terms of actions that you can take to protect yourself, okay, when you encounter ICE. Now, I want to speak about something else that became an issue under the prior Trump administration, which was the public charge rule. A lot of immigrants became afraid to, take advantage of government benefits because they were afraid it would affect their immigration status. And now, I just want to take this short time to briefly touch on that before we move into the question time. And maybe a tremono, I say a government assistance be to say be a full stamp near the now apply for immigration benefits, you be denial. But that wasn't the case, okay? But so I want us to explain very shortly what the public charge rule is. So it was really federal law that allowed immigration officers to deny certain visa and green card applications if they determined that the applicant or whoever was seeking the benefit was likely to become a financial burden on the US government. That was what the rule was about. Now, which people did it apply to? Or which people does it apply to? It applies to immigrants applying for a green card, a visa to enter the United States. Those are the only people that it applies to. Look at the people that it doesn't apply to. If you're a US citizen, a green card holder applying for citizenship, you're doing a green card renewal. So basically, if you have any of the humanitarian processes going for you, like the VAWA, TU visas, if you are a DACA applicant, it's like it didn't apply to a large group of people. And even to those that it applied to, the green card holders and then those applying for visas to enter the country, it's only applied if you are taking benefits such as a cash assistance program like the SSI or the temporary assistance for needy families and long-term care at government expense, okay? So maybe you use that advantage in the nursing home and stuff like that. When you look at this, those who are applying for green cards do not even qualify for these benefits. Most times, the people who qualify for these benefits are the people in the box that it doesn't apply to. So there's really nothing to be afraid of. As the law stands now, okay, if you're a green card holder, if you're a US citizen, or even an undocumented parent of US citizens, you can go on ahead and apply using your children's information, get this benefit. And you should be fine. All right, so when it came to other benefits like food stamps, Section 8, those were not included in the public charge rule. So we can go on ahead and use government assistance programs without fear, okay? And then especially in these times, I wanted to also touch on where to get legal help. It's very, very easy to be prone to fraud in these days because and it might not necessarily help you. So who can you get legal help from? You want to reach out to an attorney with a valid license to practice law, okay? People who have been through the system, who are educated and are experts in their field, who are able to assist you. So either an attorney or an accredited representative. Now, accredited representatives are people usually working for nonprofit organizations who have received the necessary immigration training to help you with your immigration cases. So you can look for those people or attorneys and they will help you. We have people called notary publics who claim to be able to, fill forms for you, tax preparers, some interpreters want to step in and help you out with your case. But then remember, sometimes cheap things are expensive. They might end up completing the forms for you, but then complicating your case forever. If people were about to share their experiences, you'll find out that some people went that way And now their cases have been complicated when it didn't need to be. So let's take notice of this, and then let's reach out to the right people in these times for help. So if you don't take anything at all from this presentation, I want you to keep these things in mind, okay? Under the Fifth Amendment, you have the right to remain silent. So you can refuse to answer ICE's questions. You have the right to refuse to sign anything before you talk to an attorney. You have the right not to consent to the search of any of your personal belongings or your person. You have the right to speak to a lawyer and the right to make a phone call in case you are arrested. Enti ne krakra no kai say wohyia ICE nipa bia emre mu no wo ho kwan say woni omo nkasa. Omo bisa wasem a ehu hia so be yi oma no. And also be catch omo say I plead the fifth and I say right to be silent. No. You have the right to and also no afen so omo ma paper bia krata bia sa sign ya. And also wo ho kwan say catch am say won sign it. Don't make catch you bia say there be men sign it. Ebi wo ho mutumi intimidate you ba. And then don't go with what they say, okay? Make sure you don't sign anything. Just keep that in mind and sign it bibia. And mom who kwan say omo hwehwe wo niam omo ni ho kwan say nti wan mom kwan a omo ntumi nye. Nti mom ho kwan say omo hwehwe wo niam. And afei so wo ho kwan say omo chewa obefre lawyer. These are the things that I want us to keep in mind. All right. So that is the end of my presentation. Questions are welcomed. I'll stop sharing briefly to put the links that I spoke about in the chat.
Hello.
Yeah, Stampley. We were waiting for you to come and moderate. All right. Okay. Yeah, I think it's question and answers time. So if anybody has a question, let me see. Okay. I was looking at the chat board. Okay, somebody is asking if we could have a digital copy of the. Okay, you are already sending those links. Yeah, she's sending the links, so you can just take a look at them. Any question?
I have a question.
Yes.
I did not come in late. I came in late. Lawyer, you were talking about a record. Where do you get the record and what is it about? And what is it at all? I came in late, so I'm sorry if maybe you said something about it. But if you can go over and let me know, please.
Absolutely. So I said for all nation members, the red card was what was shared about 2 Sundays ago. I think ours was gray. Let me pull up the slides again. Ours was gray. So it's like a summary of your rights.
Okay.
When it comes to ICE encounters, it shows you the fact that you have the right to be silent. You have the right to speak to an attorney.
Okay. I did not get one. Maybe I'll look for. Maybe I see yourself or whoever is responsible and get one, please. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. You can also download them online and then keep copies on your phone for when you need it. So when you go to Google, you can type in download free copy of Red Card. They're available in various languages.
Okay.
But not 3 yet when it comes to this first page. This page is always in English because that is what you hand over to the ICE agent. So that's the site that you show to the ICE agent. But you don't worry about which side when you're giving them, just hand it over. When they read the over and they read the other side. And it tells you your Fourth Amendment right, your Fifth Amendment right, and what you can do.
Okay. All right. Thank you. There is a question on the chat board. It says that if you are from Michael, it says that if you are a U.S. citizen with dual citizenship, is it advisable to use both passports to travel?
I see a lot of people concerned about this. So let me tell you what the law of the U.S. is. So under U.S. law, it says when you are a dual citizen, when you're leaving the country, you need to have, when you're leaving the country and coming back inside, you need to have your U.S. passport. Okay. Now, we all know, those of us who have traveled internationally, when you are traveling outside, very rarely do you encounter CBP officers, Custom Border Patrol agents. You only encounter the airline people and then TSA. And usually TSA is looking for your driver's license and then your boarding pass sometimes, or most often just your driver's license. Then you can go through TSA. So when you're leaving, really, nobody really inspects to see if you have your US passport on you. But then the logic is, unless you take the US passport out, how do you come back with a US passport? So carry your US passport on your way to wherever you are going. That's the law of the US. And then when you're coming back as a citizen, you need to present evidence of your citizenship, and that is the passport. So that will gain you entry into the country upon your return. So that is where the US law covers. Now, when it comes to other entry into other countries, that's a different thing altogether. Countries are sovereign entities. Nobody's law controls another, country. So when you're leaving to Ghana, Ghana says if you're a citizen, you can enter with a passport. If you are not a Ghanaian citizen, you need a valid visa, right? So
Yes.
make sure you have these two things. So if you decide to enter Ghana with your US passport, you have to make sure you have a visa in your passport. If you decide to enter Ghana with your Ghanaian passport or your Ghana card these days, that is your right. You can do that. US law does not control that end. And when you're leaving Ghana, they will also inspect to make sure that the US that you're coming to, you have the right to come in. The airlines will inspect to make sure you have the right to come in. Because if they don't do that and they bring you in when you don't have the right, they'll be fined. So bottom line, make sure you have your US passport on you when you're leaving the country and when you're coming back inside. Okay? When you
Okay.
get to Ghana, you can present your Ghanaian passport for inspection and then get in. If you want to use your US passport, either way, because assembly too na say US government bejewa ombe say akwa we kwa den no di two kwan. What the Ghanaian passport your friend say the Ghanaian passport ne two kwan and I just say you are not so much in danger because I say who will fear. So Ghana too can take care of you. But other than that, like I said, you can always enter Ghana with a Ghanaian passport.
Okay, thank you. There is another question here, two more. It says, one is it a good time to proceed with any appointment with immigration? And then if you want to take that one, there's a second one who says that, can you drive in Ohio with another state's driver's license?
Okay, so the very first question, appointment with USCIS, there can be several, right? Maybe if you apply for an immigration benefit and then you have an interview appointment, you don't want to miss something like that. That is very important. You want to show up, okay? Maybe you have an appointment with USCIS because you want to request information. That is completely fine. Like I said, there's really not a lot to be worried about when it comes to unless you're undocumented. Like if you have everything situated, you're a lawful resident in the country, you have a valid visa, you have a green card, you're a citizen helping somebody out, these things shouldn't scare you. Okay, you don't want to miss your appointments. Maybe you were ordered removed, you've been granted bail, or you've been given a bond and you're required to check in from time to time. You don't want to miss those appointments. Okay, so really whatever appointment, unless it's voluntary, okay, something that you set up, you can decide to miss out on that. Like maybe you want to request for information about what to do if, some of these questions that we ask immigration. But if it's not something like that, but it's something that USCIS has put in place that you should do, like coming in or checking in, making sure you're around so you haven't, absconded your bond. You don't want to miss those. You want to make sure you are checking in. If you are scared, always consult an immigration attorney, okay? Because an immigration attorney sometimes can represent you. You don't have to be there in person, or not the check-ins, but sometimes we have things that we can do on your behalf. So if you're really scared about what to do, reach out to an immigration attorney and we'll be more than happy to assist you.
Okay. All right. There's a question here. I don't know how I didn't get it.
And there was something about driver's license. I'm sorry.
Yes, the driver's license. Okay. So that one is, can you drive in Ohio with another state's driver's license?
Yes. So you can drive with a valid driver's license from any state in Ohio.
Okay, all right. So, and then there's another question. It says that my question is, if you do not present the US passport, I don't know if it's a question. It says that, okay, Mike, if you do not present the US passport at Kotoka and you encounter problems in Ghana, how will the embassy in Ghana assist you? Is it a US embassy or I don't know?
The person is asking about it.
Is the question,
May text it. Send it fast.
obetimi so opesa obi pesa ubisa asem obetimi abisa na otwi mu ana se dia opani bia so obetimi akasa ma wonsa so a ehu a ebe frɛw ebia me test ntem ntino me kasa me test a obekɔ ayaba na me nwie enti me opesa o cancel a ekwanya wo ha betimi aka. Okay, then nipa kro no clarify also US embassy ntino. Also, my question is, if you do not present your US passport at Kotoka and you encounter problems in Ghana, how will the US embassy in Ghana assist you?
So you notify them, okay? You can do so either online, in person, or by calling the embassy. And whatever help you seek, can help you out. So if you are a permanent resident, a citizen, and you find yourself wanting in any country, not just Ghana, you can always go to either the US consulate in that country or the US embassy in that country. They are there for you. They are there to assist you. So you can go and then find help. Like I said, either in person, sending an inquiry online, or calling whatever customer service phone number that they have.
Okay, so I will call Richard, but before Richard, let's pick this question from Bernice. She says that, is it possible to travel to different states by air if I don't have my documents but have a driver's license due to entering with a school visa?
Well, so one thing that I would say is, in these times, you do everything at your risk, right? You do everything at your own risk. But then there's nothing currently that prevents you from traveling if you have the required documents that you would need to show TSA. TSA is the one that matters. During domestic travel, you don't encounter CBP. Very rarely do you do, unless you are a few miles from there, but either of the borders. That's when sometimes they do how do you call it, impromptu inspections near the border areas. But if you are not within the border areas, you won't be encountering any official from the Department of Homeland Security. So you shouldn't be worried. If you have a driver's license that is accepted by TSA, you should be fine to travel. But like I said, you travel at your own risk because nobody knows what can happen, right? There's no telling.
Okay, all right, Richard.
Hello.
Hello, Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. My question.
Richard,
Please, can you hear me now?
Yes, it's better now.
I was asking what advice will attorney give to somebody who came in on a J1 visa and now has a waiver? What advice or what documents would you advise such person to carry when he or she is going out?
Right, so you want to carry a copy. Like I said, it's up to you. You can carry the original passport with the visa in there, as well as the receipts received from USCIS approving the waiver. You can carry them on you, but I would always suggest you carry a copy. Okay, carry these two documents on you wherever you're going.
At a waiver, he or she can also carry the waiver along with it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, carry a copy of the waiver along with you, because then when they look, they are subject to the 2-year residency. Let's not digress, but yeah, let's just leave it there. Carry the two things on you guys.
Thanks.
Okay.
Pastor, I have a question.
Okay, yeah. Deacon Bwama.
Yes. Okay, so I have two questions actually. The first one is if you encounter ICE and you show them the red card, can they still take you into custody? That's the first question. And the second question is, how can you truly tell? Because I've also heard of imposters, people, representing themselves as ICE. So how can you really tell that these people are truly from ICE? And then the first question, yeah.
So the very first question, if you show your red card to ICE, can they still arrest you? The short answer is yes. Okay, so if they approach you and they're approaching you for a reason, either because you have a criminal conviction, if they have reason or evidence to show that you've overstayed your visa, which is very unlikely these days, it's just those, or they encounter you and somehow you have something on you that says you are not legally, you shouldn't legally be present in the US. Even if you show them the red card, they can still take you in. The red card is just letting them know your right to be silent, your right not to be searched, your right, basically these two rights. So it doesn't take away from any enforcement that they can take beyond that. They just can't infringe on those rights. They can't insist that talk to us. They can't insist that. I need to charge my laptop. Sorry. I'm sorry, just a second. Sorry about that. I had the wrong plug in. They can't insist on searching your car if you refuse to, how do you call it? Give them the permission to do so. If they want to go on ahead and infringe on your rights, don't obstruct them, because that can, escalate issues. But yes, if you show them the red card and they still have grounds, okay, to complete the enforcement actions on you, they can take you in. And I'm sorry, can you remind me of the second question?
The second question is, how do you know
someone is an ICE agent?
Yes.
From an imposter. Okay. So usually they should have something on them that identifies them as ICE police. People can buy and wear that. But whatever the case, if you've exercised your rights, like I said, you can always ask them, am I under arrest? Am I free to go? If they're arresting you, an individual, if they are not ICE agents and they handcuff you, I don't foresee where they can take you to. So if they are pretending, it will have to end somewhere, right? So just keep insisting on your rights. And that should eventually reveal whether they are the real deal or they are not. If they are the real deal and they have the grounds to detain you, they'll put the handcuffs of you, put you in a car, and take you to an actual detention center.
Okay. Yeah. Any other question? So, but gradually we are all settling. Since we are having fewer questions, it's a good sign. It means that the information is sinking in. We are all getting informed, and we are getting less anxious, and that's good. Any other question?
Yeah, Pastor, I have another question.
Yeah.
About
You have muted yourself.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. My other question is about these executive orders. I know that she's spoken a lot about our rights and and how do you navigate through these executive orders, even because it looks like our rights are being infringed upon? And how do we, and that is what is causing a lot of fear amongst immigrants, So just today, I read that that our president is is asked that the people at the top of ICE be removed because they have not arrested enough people, you know. So this will force people to do stuff outside of the box, outside the law. And, once again, what do you tell, what do we say to the groups that are in fear that, we talked a lot about our rights, but still people are in fear, and it's a genuine fear. I maybe Ohio, we haven't seen a lot yet, but in other states, it is happening every day. And you talked about how the school laws will not allow them, but in Texas and Chicago, they are going to schools, circumventing the laws and going to schools. So it is a real and present danger for immigrants, especially when you are undocumented. So, how do we address these situations like this?
So, Deacon, thank you for your question. I think that's a very, very valid question. The Constitution grants the president certain powers, and the same Constitution draws the line within which those powers can be exercised. Now, it's true that Trump has put forward a lot of executive orders, but if you realize, legal advocates are also suing him left and right if those orders infringe on, people's rights. Let me give you an example. The birthright citizenship executive order that came through, so far, 3 judges have issued injunctions. So it was supposed to go into effect 30 days from when the executive order was given, but now it is not going to happen until after appeal, whatever the decision is, until after appeal. So legal minds are at work, reading through the executive orders and then seeing if it infringes on people's rights and then suing. For instance, 27 religious groups have sued, the Justice Department for the sensitive location change policy. So the policy that allowed them to make arrests in churches, they've sued concerning that, claiming that, it's an infringement of people's right to freedom of religion. So there are lawsuits going on that is putting some sort of a pause on some of these policies that are going on. So he's facing roadblocks here and there. So the fears are valid, but then, legal minds are also at work to read through them and to help out the people that are involved. And the one thing that I would also like to say is, we have the law of man and then we have the law of God. And as Christians, we have to give more credence to the law, but we need to believe, especially in these times, that God is able to protect his own. That is one thing that you always have to remind yourself of. We have this saying that fear is the absence of faith, right? I believe with all my heart, even though I'm an immigration attorney, that God is able to break people free from very complex and ridiculous cases that you wouldn't think people should come out of. People do come out of them because they have God on their side. So in these times, okay, even as you are looking at the efforts that man is playing to, somehow make sure that these executive orders do not infringe on people's rights, also look at the God that you serve and trust that he's able to keep you in these times. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we can say amen to that. Amen. Good.
Pastor.
Yeah. So, yeah, Deacon.
I want to differ on that. I don't want to say amen to this.
Okay. Because okay, just go ahead with your question, and we have few other questions then we ask.
Just sort of a response to what we just said. We are all faith people, but faith people is when we do like we walk like in presumptive faith, because this thing we have known it from 2016, and he's been preaching what he's going to do. So 2020, he went out in office, and the scripture that for me comes to mind is when the scripture says, when a demon is cast out of somebody and is not replaced with a word, the demon goes around and then comes back with 7 stronger demons more than him. And for me, this is exactly what is happening now. We saw this. He didn't lie about anything. He said he was going to do this to us. And yet we all, and you can listen to social media now. Everybody that voted, sort of all people that voted to bring him in, everybody's crying now. But he didn't lie to us. So for me, for us to go back to God and say that we have faith to get us out of this situation, whilst we knew this situation was coming, and we walked straight into it. That is where my frustration is. We walked straight into this because he didn't lie to us. He told us, frankly, this is what I'm coming to do. And we walked straight into it. So I want us to be fair with ourselves and at least admit that we did something wrong. And it's what is coming is not going to affect only undocumented immigrants. Let us not take these things. It's going to affect a lot of people, even citizens down the road. Even some people that are born here, because the agenda is different. So if we take things lightly and say that we are going back, oh, this thing is happening, we have to have faith for God to navigate us through. It's like I know very well that if I go into this situation, I'm going to find myself sinning against God. But okay, I'll go there anyway, and after that, I'll cry to God to help me through it. This is kind of frustrating for me. I'm sorry if I'm hard here, but that is how I see it. Everything was clear to us.
Right, Deacon. I mean, I believe that is what America is for, right? That
Yes.
freedom to be able to fully express ourselves and then later regret it. That's the freedom that is available to people. I do know for certain that a lot of people that find themselves in this situation did not vote for the current government, but this is what has happened. So what are we going to do with what has happened to us now? That is why we are learning these tools, these rights to empower ourselves, so that in case we encounter these scenarios, we know what to do, okay? And then if you find yourself in any dark situation, God is a present help in time of need.
Yep.
We repent and we go to him. He's always ever ready to lend a hand. And one thing I want to also let us know is attempts can be, I don't want to speculate as to future immigration changes, but then there are certain things that are enshrined under the Immigration and Nationality Act. That is federal law. Any changes will have to go through Congress. Okay, and as we know, it is very hard to get any immigration changes through government. It hasn't happened in a number of years. So there are certain things that cannot be changed, like your right to file for family members if you're a permanent resident or you're a citizen. Those things cannot be changed unless it goes through Congress. So he can try, but like I said, legal minds are around to stop him at every end, okay? So that's one thing I also want to say.
Can I say something, please?
Yes, Dr. Ejiofor.
Yeah. Thank you, Sister Belinda, for the presentation. Yeah, that's it. For the presentation. But I want us to take note of one or two things that we are all going through. Every nation gets the leadership they deserve. Every nation, when the Israelites said that we want to be like all the other countries, we want to have a king, over us, just like the nations around us. When God was their king, Nyankopon Emma Samuel specify, stipulating what they are going to go through. Or some king, okay, Samuel, mom king. King, obey Musei, obey Gigi mo taxes, obey farm mo money, mo yajuma, any other almost still a pay. Now, say what we are dealing with, the nation deserves that leadership. And it's saying, said the Kombo Amaka, he did not lie, even though this personality has lied more than any other leader that we can think of. As the Bible says, when he lies, he's speaking his native language. But the agenda that he was coming to pursue, he said the truth about what he was going to pursue. He didn't lie about that. And to say what we are dealing with, it's like we will say the lawless one. If we talk about the lawless one, as Christians, we all know one of the attributes of somebody called the lawless one. This is a leadership or somebody who doesn't respect the law because he thinks it's above the law. So if you show the red card with all these on there, they can still pick you up because they're above the law. And let's not pretend to say is going to, in a way, help. It can help, but we should. I was here soon. Na yemen Yankupon the shield ekata as Christians, because we are dealing with the lawless one and lawlessness. They don't consider the law. Can you believe? Say just Anura is saying $70 million. Congress, the previous Congress, allotted to FEMA for catastrophe near the, I don't know. They've taken it from the account of New York. They just took it. What are you going to do? The law is there, it's federal law. The House of Representatives, who control the budget and the purse of the United States, they allotted that money, but they took it. What are you going to do? Now they say they are not going to respect judges, their judgments. And so all these things are good, but we are dealing with a very unique situation where the law is not respected. So the American say, we have to be there for each other, pray, and say, Nyankopon ebekata so till this passes, because we cannot rely on the law, say the law is going to work. They don't respect the law. That's all I can say.
These two shall pass.
Yeah, this shall pass.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's Deacon and Doc and Mami lawyer. So I mean, sure, now few questions, and so I will have and pese ye trafaso na ye nhwe kwan ye betimi aboa ye na ye dem wase pa from the perspective monso modi aba ye nyina no ye de bekwa adwenwe na ya boso mpaye nyame ka ye ho. The Lord is here and the Lord is with you. Obi bisa say, is it possible to travel to, okay, we sorted that one. Which one? Or say, how will I be able to contact an attorney? Okay, how will I be able to contact an attorney if I am locked up by ICE? Yeah, by ICE, or picked up by ICE. How can I contact Menya access Afre lawyer Biana?
Right. So even in detention, you still continue to have rights. So one of those rights is you have the right to call to a phone call. Okay, so who you put the phone call through to is up to you. That's why I remember earlier on we mentioned memorizing either the number of a family member, a trusted family member, or the number of an immigration attorney, so that when you are given that chance, you'll be able to call. So you can demand for that phone call because it is your right. Okay, and then other rights include the right not to sign anything without speaking to a lawyer. You still have the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, not to answer any questions about your immigration status, and you have the right to request a hearing before an immigration judge. Now, that is if you've been in the country for longer than 2 years. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Lawyer presentation obi wo asembisa bi anase obi ewo bibi ekanto so. Question. Me question I me question me dey na ye. What address efa sorry say ebia ICE me yenim say some of the states, you know, they've been to some churches. Na had ye nya enhu bibi esa na momo no sani aye ka no the fear ama nipa bebre nsusuro say won be kwa sorry because womu nim emra ahade no so beba so and safo ni nyina no deprive womo the right to worship womo freedom to worship atena womo fahudie so say okay say be 27 institutions and womo issue a buying over this particular concern am I raising now. Sanya womo ye nneoma no emra no wo ho nso womo buani omoni aguso ede takashi ne ebia patapa ne ade ba ne se me yesofo yakokwasi ada asoda mi abia bia obia nim se bambo wo ho se ne fie kura na ne ka mu na bambo ni ho adwuma mu bambo ni ho ne fie omutumi bo wura ho yese na asori dem the sacred space, and then also the separation between states and church and state. Now, I say for to me about the seven warrant sanwa. Me pesa hono utimi chirem kakra se bani sanwa. What can we do, especially the clergy? Asudi ben away so, and as a right ben ye wa. Yansu bit me a gemu protect our parishioners, and I say our flock. Do we have any rights? And I say, do we have any protection within the law? Why am I and so? You're born sorry, man, who by Mamusu who say beer or bar sorry, or hold your bamboo be ho. Ubia me hunan ho. Na enka munshe if ye or munyasa for who dear son cosom because it won't be up to Nimpaniso. How do we navigate through? I don't know if it's a legal question or it relates to immigration issue na and I said executive orders na present to our person. I want to make sure say it relate to it.
Yeah, it does. It does. And to say that me can kind of sorry in your public space, even though congregants walk in whenever they want. It's not like a public space to me a room without legal authority. Sorry is a private space. In Tanzania, ICE bet me a they need certain legal documentation. And yes, someone to me raw. It's only here judicial warrant. And I make her say it's very rare for ICE to have a judicial warrant. Because it takes time. It is very, very rare for ICE to have a judicial warrant. It's only judicial warrant pastor or representatives of the church, you can always tell them you are exercising your constitutional rights not to let them in. And I think so a warrant, depending on which one they have, search warrants, make me about inside. Without a search warrant, they can't enter. If it's an arrest warrant, they can't come into the church. We can let them know whoever they are looking for is not in the church. I mean, I'm not telling anybody to lie, but if that is the case, we can tell them the person is not in the church and then they are not allowed to come in. They have to turn around and leave, or they can decide to do whatever they want on public spaces. But about private space, parking lots near there, they can only be there with legal authorization. And I think so. They said I'm a kind. Say, even the detention centers are overrun. Into OTT news, they are trying to find other facilities that can accommodate people that they want to detain. But it's as of now, Guantanamo Bay, but as of now, the spaces are not that available. Until they are going after people who they claim to be priority. They say criminals, those who are working without authorization. For most people, like visa overstays, near their own serious crime, they won't go through the trouble of following you to church. I know there you'll be part of the collateral arrest. Ebi omukwachi obi na mafra wafra. Bibi sano. Inti ano sano ya so yen kra. Ehun hia so beko baby enko because you never know. Inti really, when it comes to targeted, some best spending resources to come and encamp, in church, and it will have to be somebody who is, top notch on their list.
Okay. And so Matu Asia just said, we can assume the worst, and the worst case scenario is that if it does happen, then the leadership of the church can step in on behalf of the congregants.
Absolutely.
And speak, because the church is now one a friend say a woman saying, I was wondering, say, I sorry, and just the sanctuary, don't I sorry, property no is concerned a parking lot, also been be or a public space. Say private property.
Private property, yes.
Private property, yes.
Yeah, until no be back to make a gentle back into the car.
Okay, all right. Matthias, Medasi pa. So BB. One other question that I wanted to ask, because so funny say minimum so far also, but so far no. I want to for ebi oni abusua bia o baby na abusua ne asore. Enti eba ne se bia ice for nimpa bi sa ye che no onim lawyer bia ba obetimi afre ne sofo a eba ne sa na sa sorry pani bia or say ye show up na say ye lawyer echo edukoma sa nimpa no. What should be the process ebetimi afaso na ye de abo ansore ma no.
Enti editeni obi na ofre reach out to an attorney. Unless Onipa Kono can't afford, even if you can't afford, we have pro bono attorneys around, even though Aman says they are all operating at full capacity. And a non-profit organizations, you can always give them a try, if they're available. But an attorney is very important because you need somebody who's knowledgeable in the law to go to the person, listen to the facts, and start preparing a defense. Demanding some of the rights, like requesting for a hearing before an immigration attorney or requesting for a bond if the person qualifies. All these determinations will need to be done by somebody who is knowledgeable about the situation. And you want to, as soon as possible, reach out to an immigration attorney. So, okay. Right. But if you can also research about the situation and then go pay the bond, you can also do that. Ordinary citizens can also pay bond.
Okay. But
it has to be somebody with lawful status. So usually a US citizen. Because one person also don't home back to us.
All right. Good. Any other question? Round it up. But your question be obium.
Inua banase pa na adeba say be all kind or no kind or so kind sa but you took kwan no. Say be our Ghana, say binum ye now the Ghana pass back home where you're right, why say a name Samre woman yan so straightforward simple. Oh, quite American papa could do visa. Now they call Ghana no the aba. For now, no so your citizen do that. Now if you call fa Ghana dia ko fa hona could be bebusa question after and same be tina me stress hono me say all can say but we no say it's up to you. And me sure say it's the best way pass say we be visa now the accord say with the Ghana passport be far no ha we could do a hoso the aba na wo banso a fa America passport na the aba why this amra bitima visa no bon sheda anya din bia na nkwaji mo American passport mfa confirm ma say na me can say is it not better that way say as ye the chichiri ya hondo sa asem no
obia ne diope. Yeah, okay. They always offer advice, but you also talk about their options.
Of course, okay.
What they want. Oh, you're Ghanaian citizen, Kwandia. You have a right to use your Ghanaian passport to enter Ghana. US laws do not cover that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, US law can say, oh, free US and I will buy US. You must have your passport.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's up to people to pick and choose. You can enter Ghana with your passport or your visa, but you do everything at your own risk, right?
And I mean, you can say in this time, CD and Kenya come here, yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's good. Okay.
Mami lawyer mpacho, Baba.
Yeah, so
Yo, Baba. Asuma dike kano. Eye serious pa minim se sene wo kana wo se jama afutuo ba. Se si ye kase ye baba ko Ghana ofri Charlotte ne koye. Wakwa sene ye kan ya na okoka passport mi no abomo. Ye se wo kodu ye no. Eche se wo ba de a afi na wasa ba kra se so meje arrival visa. Se no wo se si ayo. Ọkọ no so the Ghana wa anye visa sise no opente no ye de okoduru ye no ye so ntimi mfamba ene agise wo betue ska kopara wa no ye
Ghana for penebu no.
Just pan di
A
ka
lot of
se
photos.
bo anaya de ba akofa ko nye ho na wokoduru abeto ye nkra se ye me free immigration ko busemu ye se no nkoja arrival visa no nkotue $200 na nti was so obeba ye be man na arrival visa okoduru na ye sound na niam anko yi am ana wo ye ne den nti di asem na oka no ihia pa se o se ye kwa ye bobo ye ho preko me das
yeah, so for Yamishamo. Yeah, there will be a say. Say Pacho question be any will be more. You, Madam Wasipa, Mammy lawyer, Yamishra. Yeah, that's a pa wo emre ni adajira. Wonso unya ye. Ekeka saa nimdeɛ nyinaa bɔ mu na wɔde ɛbrɛ yɛn yɛbaeɛ nso agya wonya yɛn ho abotire ɛwɔ nsɛmbisa ne adeɛ no mu. I want to take this opportunity to thank each one of us, both All Nation Church members and others that are in the community who also join us. We want to say thank you. I think the situation is still evolving. A lot of challenges, but again, as people of faith, whatever the outcome, wherever we find ourselves, we know that God will continue to have our back and protect His own. So we are confident, and I know a lot of sentiment and emotions are presently very, very high. So we are very sensitive. We want to be very careful that we don't make it worse than what it is already. I was talking to somebody today. We were having a conversation, and then I thought the president has been around for about 3 months. He said, "No, Pastor, it's just about a month." And I said, "It's just 1 month, and we are already overwhelmed, with all that." And like
3 weeks or 1 month.
I keep on adding because it's like the guy has been around forever, So I know it's really, really depressing. It's really frustrating and nerve-breaking, but God will surely see us through. And especially those of us who believe in God and we are Christians, let's continue to find hope in God that the Lord will see us through and God will see this country also through. And it's difficult, but we will overcome. We will overcome. God is good. So we want to thank you so much all for coming. And we pray that let's continue to have this conversation. There are a lot of information she has provided. She also provided her personal information. Oh, I see one hand. Mami lawyer, you want to take that one hand before we go? Before we ask Deacon Edu Jambi to pray for us to go. Yes.
So, Patrick, it's up to you.
Yes, okay. The one hand. Okay. Why, Boama, please?
So for Pacho, and
Oh,
go
I
for
didn't.
bisa questions to her. Obi bisa say, can they use her as their attorney? No, bisu bisa for the number.
Oh,
And I'm
okay.
person may draw attention.
Oh, okay. And Odia Gusun, me patro muhu.
Faint.
Faint. Oh, okay. Mami lawyer, I bet me I know bold kakrama.
Obie mu abehu.
Obi mo. Yeah. Me patro muhu. Manada suka cry, but that's why through till we finish praying. Auntie Belinda Asamoah, Attorney Belinda Asamoah, and Pharos Legal Consultancy. And the number here is 614-500-1629. And the email here Belinda BELINDA at Pharos PHAROS legal.com and our website and so www.pharoslegal.com and we can additional information there. You can also contact me. My number is 614-446-8804 and then I will link you up to her. Nyami Inshrae. Yabesrema dikemboam edu jamfi eni abompaye.
Pacho mama ye mompae. Erade ye da wase wadom a wode adom yen. Ye da wase nso se mre ti se ye mu nso wama ye mu bia erade mu tie mra na se na wama be kire yen. Yanko ankofo obi enfra bontene na emu ye mu baako na erade wonam no so de ayi nhira. We ma ye hu adom a wode adom wasore ene wasafo. Ye da wase pa wo entrichire mu erade wonam adom so de adom ye ni. Ni ayese wa urade ne se obebo ye ho ban no am anya ahweyi nso if say why ya adom am anya nso am enimdie am enoma bibra urade timde trase tin ayese on se urade boaye na enhu animonyam ye sase obiem se wa urade a wonam adom so all nation safo wabo ye ho ban free fa migration ho abeduru nne no enye nne na obegya yimu. Well, we pray for it. I have the firm belief that Lord, you will continue to protect people at All Nations Baptist Church.
Yes,
That
Lord.
ya titi ni ya Kenya na ready baby twam akọ enka yen. We say we ready o kan ho. Ya di gidie na etu sa na mo no. Na ya di gidie nso na be wie ni aka say ya ready na aye. Fis da bia ya kan yi wa ye da wase wo ho. Kinim so obeye. Father, we are so grateful to you for what you have done, what you continue to do. Yinim say Bamnasi, you mo yare and hoda. In him say, Yam Shishan, dear. It's a system now, woman situation, a woman, I am Shishia womb. Now, swinging Namus, you would Gideon so well, Radu say, which me do my free to be at this. Well, what Tabanka say, not say any idea who share. Senior Wakano would say, Yan, dear, would you could tell on some. Obi antimi hwim yen emfiri won nsem. Kenu din say ya na ya dwane beto a won say you have God ha. You dwane beto ye. Awurade you dwane beto a wo enanwumre se hu mamobo. Si mu bi oho ne senkrata se mu di ni nyama ne yamo hye no wo hu ne awon Awurade kyene were. Ne ka no ho. Ne ma no hu se wunyame wa wo di no bedu krom ha no. Wunya ne mu. Na obehwe ne so. Na betwa mu akọ ne yaka se emre bi du na eden na nso Awurade hwɛ yɛn so na wo yi firi mu yɛda wase biem yɛn so nyina sɛ kɔso so kan ho sɛ asafo boa yɛn Awurade dwumadi a wode ahyɛ yɛn sase yɛn no so ma ne asi ma yɛwura mfi na yɛankɔ yi bi foforo ne yɛnkɔ so ansom yie nhyɛ wɔ animonyam yɛda wase so wetie wɔ Yesu Kristo dire mu yɛsɛ wo biem so ɛma wafona nso ne awonam no so de nsɛm brɛ yɛn Awurade ɛfrɛ a wafrɛ no ni o yɛsɛ so obɛhyira no adwuma so ma no adwuma so ntompɔn mmerɛ a wode bi kyɛ yɛn kwai na Awurade nso wo hyɛ nana mu wo hu sɛ ampa sɛ mede me mmerɛ bi de som wo Awurade wasafo a wo Awurade wo hyɛ nana mu no wɔyɛ ne mmerɛ bi biem anyɛ ne den anyɛ den ama no yɛda wase ma Belinda biem hyira no na Awurade wɔn nso nyɛ nhyira ma afoforo wo Yesu Kristo duru mu ɛne abɔ mpaeɛ amen.
Amen. Awurade nhyira yɛn nyinaa. All Nation Baptist Church ɛna yɛkeka dwumadi esi ani. Yɛhyia ɛwɔ 4105 Westerville Road. Ubetumi abɛsra yɛ mmerɛ bi a nyame nhyira yɛn. Bye bye.